Hello guys, Crispy here, welcome back to another video. In this one of my friends, I'm gonna be testing the new in the channel RX 560. Yes guys, I just bought this card a couple of days ago in CEX because, well, it just popped up for 75 euros and many of you have been asking for this GPU here in the channel. So I just bought it, really overpriced for an RX 560, and for 75 euros I just suggest you to go out and buy something like an RX 470 used or 570 even, because those will outperform this one by a lot. Okay, I don't really recommend the 560 unless you can buy it for like 40 bucks or something like that. But anyways, if you do have this GPU, I'm gonna be testing, of course, GTA 5 because we're in May of 2020, and what better game to test other than GTA 5, right guys? And as you can see right here, this is the 4GB variant of the RX 560. It's also the Pulse version from Sapphire, and I'm running it with a Ryzen 7 3700X and 16 gigs of RAM. Let's just get into it. Enough with the talking, and where I'm gonna be playing here at 1080p using like highest settings as well as maybe like medium settings and low settings. Like, I'm gonna be messing around with a few settings here and there. So as you can see right now, everything is set to the highest settings right here except for the post effects, because that actually introduces some motion blur even with this slider all the way down to 0, supposedly 0, you know. I can still see some motion blur with it, so I just disable that. And also the MSAA anti-aliasing is turned off. Everything else in this menu screen right here is turned up to the highest, and I'm using softest shadows instead of the AMD CHS because I don't even know what those are, but okay. Over here in the advanced graphics settings, everything is turned off and you should not touch those, because even when the game came out in 2015, the highest end GPU available was a Titan X, which now performs like a GTX 1070 or 1660 Ti, and you could barely run the game with those settings enabled at 1080p. So just don't you worry about those settings, just ignore them completely and you'll be fine, okay? So moving on, as you can see right here guys, with these settings enabled, we are actually getting really high FPS, and no, it's not the CPU that's boosting our frame rate. If you have something like a 4th Gen i5, you're gonna get absolutely the same FPS as we're seeing right now in the screen, because that CPU is actually good for like 60 to 80 FPS, and as we are below that, that means that even a 4th Gen i5 won't be fully utilized here in this game. Okay, so it will make our RX 560, god damn it, run at 99% usage pretty much at all times still here in this little run that I'm making. So right now I'm actually going at full speed, or trying to go at full speed, so we can put a little bit of a strain in the GPU, trying to render new stuff, you know. Right now we're gonna go through all of this crowd right here and see how it performs here with all of the NPCs in the screen. This is sort of a more CPU intensive area than GPU intensive, so we're seeing pretty much the same FPS. Once we get to the end of the little run that I'm making with the grass and stuff, that's where it is really GPU intensive, and I feel like it's probably gonna drop into the 30s or even high 20s here with the RX 560. Oh my gosh, so many RX names and stuff like that. Okay, alright, moving on. We're hovering around 50 to 60 FPS right now. Yep, let's just crash my car over here as I usually do in these runs, and now we're approaching the most intensive area of our benchmark run, which is this area right here. So right now, as if I stop right here, you can see that everything has been very smooth throughout. So 55 FPS on average and 45 1% lows, pretty decent experience, no stuttering whatsoever. And as we walk or drive through these bushes and all of this grass right here, we can see that it's dropping into the 30s. It's still not a bad experience whatsoever, you know. If you compare it to the consoles, for example, it's a way better experience. I think the PS4 and Xbox One run this game at 1080p, maybe like medium to high settings, at 30 FPS locked, so you can still lock your FPS to 30 and get a console-like experience if you want to, because it never drops from 30 FPS, and I was really expecting it to drop into the 20s, but it didn't. So thankfully the RX 560 is able and is capable of running this game absolutely fine. just my car is just wrecked right now, guys. Completely. Look at that. That's been it for the like maxed out settings or very high settings at 1080p without any, oh my god, sorry, without any anti-aliasing and stuff. I can't, I'm pressing D on the keyboard, but the card just doesn't really turn there. But okay, let's stop it right there. 52 FPS average and 34 1% lows because of the grass. Not bad at all. This is really good performance for the RX 560. I'm gonna go ahead now and disable a few things. First of all, let's turn these slides down a little bit here. Oh god, what the heck is going on? Please. Oh, it's GTA 5 with those little bugs again. If I alt tab out of the game and get into it again, it's gonna be fine. See that, guys? It's, yeah, GTA 5, I don't know why it does it, but yeah, alright. Anyways, I'm gonna put it like that, and let's turn everything to high. The reflection MSAA over here was at 8x. You might think that this is a very intensive option because it says MSAA right there, and it usually is very intensive, but it's only for the reflections. It doesn't really hurt your FPS too much, so I'm just gonna leave it at 2x, so everything still reflects very well. And let's use soft shadows over here, still on the normal post effects settings. I'm not gonna touch this one. Normal ambient occlusion and high tessellation. Let's apply that, restart the game. Alright guys, so here we are once again, and we might see some stutters here in the menu because of the high frame rates. That's just GTA 5 behavior. I'm just gonna go through all of the settings really quickly so you can see that everything is the same right here. We didn't really touch the advanced graphics, of course, and let's go ahead and start counting our FPS. Now, you will need a very strong CPU if you want to get like around 80 FPS on average, which we might see here. Yeah, let me just check here for a little bit, running around to see how many FPS we can get here. So, oh my god, yeah, 90s. This is really good. So, you know that 4th gen i5 that only applied to the very high settings. If you are running a 4th gen i5, say for example the 4460, you can still get like 60 to 80 FPS using these settings right here, but you're not gonna see it going up into the 90s or high 80s as you are seeing right now. So that GPU usage with the CPU like that won't really be maxed out. But if you have something like a Ryzen 3 3100 or even 1200 and overclocked at 1200, you might see these FPS actually, because I remember having a Ryzen 1700 and this game only runs on 4 threads, so it will perform the same on a Ryzen 3 1200 if you overclock the Ryzen 3. So yeah, and that was good for 100 FPS, so you're good if you have something like that. A first gen Ryzen overclocked should get these frame rates that we're seeing right now. Maybe a couple of FPS slower, but still the experience is pretty much the same anyways. If you really want to not bottleneck this GPU right now and get 100 FPS like we're getting right now, you will need something like a 4690K and overclock that. That's an i5 4th gen but overclockable, or even like an i7 or i5 6600K or 6700K. Oh my gosh, I've never done this like this before. That was an interesting jump. Just keep in mind you will need something with strong single core to achieve 80 to 100 FPS, but if you have something like that 4th gen 4460, you'll get like 60 to 80 FPS. It won't really drop from 60 too much, so you're fine in that regard. And as you can see, we're getting 86 FPS on average and 1% lows of 70 right here. And let's go to our really intensive area, see if it drops from 60. So far so good. Yeah, it doesn't seem to be dropping, so that's really good. If you want a 60 plus FPS experience, I think these are the settings to achieve that. And by the way, this is actually more intensive than explosions and stuff. Oh, wait a second guys, it dropped into the 50s there. 57 1% lows, 59 right there. I saw it dropping into like 54 or 55 I think, but it was only for a split second. It's perfectly playable still, and I would probably recommend these settings if you have a 60 Hz monitor. You're gonna be very happy with the RX 560 here. There are just better options out there sometimes, like the ones I mentioned earlier that you should buy instead of this one if you're interested in a 75 euros GPU or something like that. But yeah, this is performing really well still, okay? So we got 83 FPS average, 1% lows of 58, not bad at all, and it's actually surpassing my expectations. I expected way less performance coming out of this card, but yeah, it's doing very, very good. And now let's go ahead and turn it down a notch, maybe do like these sliders over here. I'll leave the textures on high because on normal they really look mushy and I don't like them, and it doesn't really affect your FPS. And also, if you do have the 2GB model of this GPU, you'll pretty much get the same FPS as we saw right here because we're not over the 2GB VRAM limit right there, so that's fine as well. Just gonna set everything else to normal, I think, and normal is actually the low settings in this game. If I click right here, there's no low option, as you can see. It goes back to very high. So yeah, let's just put everything to normal right now. Sharp shadows, which are the lowest shadows here, of course, don't touch that, don't touch that. Normal off. Yeah, we can turn that off, and let's turn this off as well. And yeah, let's just restart the game and do the benchmark again. Now this should be very, very light on the GPU. As you can see, guys, we're well above 100 right now. So to get these FPS, you'll actually need like a 6600K overclocked. That's an i5 6th gen, by the way. Let's just go through the settings real quickly here again. These, I would say these are the low settings that we're testing here today. I wouldn't really go lower than this actually. So let's just keep on moving here, start counting our FPS, of course, and you can already tell that the reflections, especially in the cars and the road here, everything looks a little bit worse, and that's normal, of course. We're running it on low settings. It still looks okay, but you know, you don't need 100 plus FPS in this game, really. Like 60 FPS is absolutely fine, so I would really recommend you to play at high settings. Just only use these settings if I don't know, I can't really think of a use case to use these settings with the RX 560 because it did perform really, really well on high. So just don't play like this, okay? Oh god, come on. Alright, we're good here still. But as you can see, these are absolutely ridiculous frame rates for GTA 5. And yeah, if you don't have a beefy CPU, you're not gonna get these FPS with the RX 560. So just stick to or aim for a 60 FPS experience in this game, and you're gonna be absolutely fine, and it's gonna be a smooth experience. By the way, if you are wondering how this will do in the online game, it's pretty much the same, okay? The game is the same, the GPU performs the same. The thing that's really a lot different is that in the online game mode, you're gonna get lower FPS if you have a lower end CPU. Like if your CPU is strong and has strong single core performance, you're gonna get similar FPS to the single player. Well, not these ridiculously high frame rates, because even my 3700X only does around 80 FPS on the multiplayer. But still, if you do have the 3100, Ryzen 3 3100, you're probably gonna get around 70 to 80 FPS in the multiplayer. If you have that 4th gen 4460, you're probably gonna have like around 50 FPS instead of 60. So it lowers a little bit because of the CPU, but the GPU performance is the same. That's why I'm not really using the online game to test these GPUs, because that's way more CPU demanding. So that wouldn't really make sense to bottleneck our GPU, of course, if I'm testing GPUs here. Anyways, guys, we are running into the end of our benchmark run, and you know, if you want a high refresh rate experience and you have like an i5 6600K overclocked, you can run this game with very, very smooth frame rates and a high refresh rate monitor absolutely fine. I just again don't recommend it because the game doesn't look anywhere near as good as high or very high setting. That said, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and I will hopefully see you in the next one. Don't forget to give it a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done that already. And as always, guys, I love you all. Bye bye.